It's time for our weekly segment with former Baylor quarterback J.J. Joe. Now, here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Here we go with J.J. Joe, Baylor Radio Color Analyst, former Baylor quarterback. And J.J., thanks for your patience. We appreciate you on the show today. I got to tell you, I sat there and I watched that Thursday night. You're right there in the middle of it, Morgantown. It's hard to win. I get all that. But there still seems to be a disconnect or something missing. I asked Dave Aranda a little bit about that yesterday. Do you still see that?
Yeah, I think so. I did hear the interview with Coach Aranda. That was a great interview, Smoke. I think he's at a loss a little bit because, it's, he has, on one hand, he has a very experienced team with championship DNA, and he has a number of really young players in key positions that all kind of seem to make a mistake at different times. And when you're replacing 3, 4, 5 NFL guys, man, it just seems like it's like pulling teeth to eventually get to some level of consistency. And here's a prime example. Gavin Holmes, who's a sixth-year guy, love Gavin. He really kind of had coming in, he had a really rough day at Oklahoma State, but that's really not him. And then he comes back and gives you just this great performance. Now, Gavin, while he's a veteran player from an age standpoint, is really an inexperienced player. And that's kind of what you get from what I would call young players or players that are their experience level is a little bit less than the guys they replaced. And that's what he's trying to work his way through. So, yeah, it's kind of uneven right now.
JJ, how comfortable would you feel with Kyron Drones rolling out this week as the starter?
With the week to prepare, I feel really good. I think from watching Kansas will put points on the board. So I'm really kind of wondering more about our defense. And I think defensively, Kansas would be the right team because Kansas, while they are having a great season, most of the games you go back and look at the ones they won outside the Iowa State game, and Iowa State seems to have a little bit of problem scoring. They've given up points. So I think Kyron Drones with a week to prepare, and he should be getting all the reps. I think he can work his way through and put us in a position to win. It'll be tough to win, but at home against a team that may not be like a real defense that's going to come after him, I think I'd be comfortable with that.
Not expecting 200-plus yard output every time Gavin Holmes takes the field from here on out, JJ. Far and away his career best performance, but a nice spark in that wide receiver core, huh?
It is, man. It's Gavin, and I knew Gavin had. He has it in him. When he first started the season, I was surprised. I don't think in the first game that he really started. He played, but he just kind of did what I thought Gavin would do, is find his way on the field. And to be honest with you, I was more surprised by the Oklahoma State game from Gavin than I was the West Virginia game because I know Gavin. I saw him his freshman year. I know he has the ability, but like I said, it's just one of those things where he is, he's a 6-year player, but he probably has. This is maybe the second year that he's really had meaningful action in his career, and so you get a little inconsistency. But it was really good to see him really go at it and have a great day.
Why can I not get to the quarterback?
Smoke, that's a great question. But I think if you just boil it down, 6 games in, you are who you are. And we're a wildly inconsistent team that is not as good at some positions that we thought we were. Now, that's not – I know people will take that the wrong way, but, when you got the guys we have up front, and I know sometimes people say, we only have 3. Well, we're usually bringing 4, usually. Sometimes we'll drop 8, but we're usually bringing 4. If we have the guys I thought we had before the season, one of those guys are going to win 1 out of 3 or 4 passes. And on Thursday night, no one really won. I think TJ won. I saw TJ win 1, and then he kind of got hurt, and I don't think it was the same. He did keep playing, but I just think up front, Smoke, to be honest with you, I just don't think when it comes to pass rush, we're not as good as we thought we were. So I think ultimately we got to be who we are and live and die with that.
That's true, Sic'Em. No one wants to hear that, JJ, right?
Yeah, and I know that people say, well, the color analysts, they're not as good. No, I mean, it's just that coming into the season, we all said, hey, man, these defensive lines and offensive lines are the best Baylor's ever had. And they may be, right? They may actually be from a just pure what I would call talent standpoint. But, hey, my coach has always told me, at some point production matters more than potential, right? Mm-hmm. And either you win it or you're not. And I look back at a couple games where, we played Oklahoma State, and I forget the young man's name, but we knew he was a pass rush specialist. And when it was time to win, he was a defensive end. I think it was Colin or Connor Galvin. He was going against Connor Galvin, and he won. We seemingly in high leverage moments are not winning, and coach has to create blitzes, which he can't do. And even Coach Randall said, hey, look, we have to cover the guys who are covering. And so that means I can't blitz as much. He's being honest. And so our guys have to win, and we're just not winning up front.
JJ, you said that Baylor has to be who they are, but they thought they were going to be one thing, and now halfway through the season, they have to adjust and be a slightly different thing. How difficult is that to do in the middle of the year?
Well, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how coach approaches the Kansas game. Because when you're 6 games in, and man, I've been on both sides. I've been on both sides where I was like 6-0, 5-1. I've been on the other side when you're 2-4 or something, or whatever, 3-3. So, coaches, we have to figure out who are we, and it's going to be a little testing, because I think defensively, I don't think we can keep doing what we're doing. Because I said it like 3 weeks ago when we played BYU. 4 weeks ago. We just don't play zone defense very well. We just don't. I can't explain it. I know they're practicing in practice. It probably looks really good in practice. But when teams are coming at us full speed, they're running their best route. They're sharp. They're protecting. We have a hard time covering up space. Now, I think part of that is because we have to remember we lost 2 really special zone players in space. We used to have Terrell Bernard in space next to Dylan Doyle, who also does well in space, along with Jalen Petrie, who, when he wasn't blitzing, was playing in space. 2 of those guys are in the league. And when you replace those guys, and Matt, I love Matt, but Matt is learning Jones how to play in space. I think Matt is at his best when you tell him to go get the quarterback. And Al Walcott, I think, he played the star position in JUCO, but I think Al probably is best when he's able to chase a man. When he's able to go find a man, get a man, like he's able to cover. So I think we struggle. So I'm almost of the mindset of, at some point you have to decide, hey, I'm just not going to give a quarterback like JT Daniels 2.5, 3, 4 seconds. He's got to feel like, okay, I may complete it, but I may have to get up off the turf to do it. So it'll be interesting to see what our defensive approach is on Saturday. And offensively, I think we're kind of getting there on offense.
JJ, have you had much of a chance to see Kansas? Granted, they're different with Jalen Daniels at the helm, and wouldn't imagine that he's available to go, but I'm sure that'll be a part of just the kind of gamesmanship. But either way, have you been able to see much of them this year?
I have. I mean, they've been so ballyhooed. I've watched a couple games. I saw the OU game. I saw there was one other game I saw. I haven't looked at them this week, and I actually saw some of the game last week that they lost. And I saw some of the TCU games too. So I've seen enough of them. Jalen Daniels, I really like him. I like the Bean kid. He makes a few more mistakes. He's just, he's not as consistent, which is why he's not starting. You don't expect for your backup to be as consistent as your starter. But as far as his ability to get out of the pocket and move, he accelerates really quickly. I think his initial burst is actually quicker than Jalen Daniels, although Jalen Daniels runs well. I think if we don't figure out how to locate him and he starts running, he can give us problems. But they're still going to be a huge threat to us, offensively, from their offensive standpoint. So they'll be a challenge.
Is this week about mental as much as it is about physical?
Smoke, this whole game is mental, man. this is not. I mean, if I put this team on paper, no one would expect this team to be 3-3. At least I wouldn't. Some people said, hey, before they say, oh, they're not as good. I'm like, okay, they may not be, but they're not a 3-3 team. But so really a lot of it is between, I think it's really between it's experience, but part of it is between the ears, because if you think about the ways we've lost games, I mean, we're giving up points. We're giving up points on kickoff returns and blocked PATs and picked up fumbles. I mean, we're doing everything that we didn't do last year, and that's what makes us 3-3. It's not just lining up and playing football. It's like the other stuff that we're battling, and a lot of that, now I'm not going to say all of it is mental, but a significant part of not getting your PAT blocked is blocking down on time. A significant part of not giving up a fumble from a young quarterback is to do the drill he's done with his quarterback coach 1,000 times. Both hands, dip shoulder. Both hands, dip shoulder, get out. That's mental. That's the thing where I'm not concentrating. And if you're a player, everybody's been there. So it's not a knock. Everybody's been there, and you learn from it, and hopefully you move on.
Yeah, JJ, last week was the absolute microcosm of a bad thing after a really good thing, and just negating what you had just done. That I think was probably the most frustrating for a lot of fans because, man, look, Gavin Holmes is a huge gain. Fumble. Oh, you get a big fourth down stop. Fumble. It's those things just will drive you nuts.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I'm not a coach. I mean, they get paid well, but that's why I'm not a coach, man. It's just, I know I drove coaches mad. These young men at this point in time are learning, and I believe they're getting better, because if you think about it, if this team just cleans up, I mean, if you just say, hey, look, let's do this. Let's just punt. We're not going to fumble. Let's just punt it. But matter of fact, we'll punt on second down. They're probably a 4-2 football team. But I mean, so while I think this week in Smoke asked a question about it being mental, they just need something positive. They've lost, 3 out of their last 5, 2 out of their last 3, 2 in a row. They just got to get on the positive side of the ledger. And this week they really need it with, a run of going to Tech and going to Norman and then Kansas State coming and TCU coming, finishing with Texas. Man, goodness. It can get real ugly if they don't mentally just kind of get there.
The question we've asked this week, JJ, or we've really been asking since Thursday is, I hate to say it because of the expectations, but there's a chance they don't get to a bowl game if they don't pull out of this gutter. And, excuse me, and, when you start looking at and again, others will come and go up and down or whatever. Some might have injuries, attrition. But you look at that, and you look at where other teams are, and you wonder. I think they will, but, man, they better get one this weekend against KU, even though KU is obviously much improved.
Yeah, Smoke, you're 100% correct. And if we look at it, in 2 weeks, we lost by 3 points, and we lost by 11. That's 14 points. I think I saw the stat we've given up 18 points, non-offensive touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. I mean, this team ain't that far off. It's not that far off. But someone has to make the difference. And on defense, that means, if I got Apu, if I got, all these guys up front that are really good, someone has to go win you again. They got to go almost like make it impossible for the other team to block them. I've seen that done around here. I've seen I think in 19, I forgot who was on nose guard at 19.
Bravion Roy.
Bravion Roy
yep.
used to destroy offenses because they just couldn't block him. He would destroy plays and not make the tackle because they had to put 2 guys on him and they just couldn't block him. He would make decisions, I'm going to destroy this play. And I think to make up a little bit for those other guys, we got to have somebody or some group do that.
JJ, thank you. We'll see you at the stadium on Saturday as always. JJ Joe, former Baylor quarterback, Baylor Radio with us on 365 Sports. We'll come back. John McClain, Hall of